I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Well, hello, movie fans. This is Demetri Panos, along with my fabulous co-host, Roxy Striar.
Hello.
Hello, and we're here today to talk about The Equalizer here on Anatomy of a Movie. I hope everybody is all well. We also have JT in the booth doing the ones and twos. Say hello to everybody, JT.
What up, buddy?
And hopefully he will chime in on this movie because he has seen it. We have seen it. We're ready to talk about this Denzel Washington, Antoine Fuqua partnering up again.
Yes, we
are. So why don't we let the festivities begin?
Okay.
So Roxy, what did you think of The Equalizer?
You know, I thought the movie was very solid. And I know that that's not the popular opinion right now. I'm hearing from a lot of people that they loved it. I thought it was very good. I enjoyed it. I really had to pee about halfway through, and that might have affected my experience a little bit. It was a little long. I love Denzel. I thought he did a great job. So there's definitely some pros and cons for me that we'll get into.
Yeah, I think because of Denzel, he makes almost anything interesting to watch. Mm-hmm. And I thought that he was just great in this role. He's, again,
Absolutely.
very interesting to watch. For me, I got to preface this because before I left...
You had to pee also?
Before the movie, I try. And then after the gallon of Coke that I spent $12, and that's a different
price.
story. Yeah, sure. It's a bargain at twice the price. But before heading out to the movies to see this, I was at home flipping through the cable channels, and Sudden Impact came on, the Dirty Harry movie, Clint Eastwood. And I always stop at a Dirty Harry movie, and I clicked on, and it just happened to be, by pure coincidence, the most iconic scene in that movie, which is probably the most popular Dirty Harry movie. But it's the scene that set precedent for the remainder of that year, the catchphrase that still can be used today. It was the diner scene in which Dirty Harry has the punks by his big magnum and goes, "Go ahead, make my day."
Yep.
And you know, I always loved the Dirty Harry movies, or any movie actually, for that matter, where the protagonist is there. We have a clear protagonist, clear hero, clear bad guys, and he's always trying to help the innocent or do the right thing.
Oh, I see where you're going with this now.
And while I'm watching The Equalizer, I was thinking, God, you know, there hasn't been a movie where there's just this one guy. Like, it's clearly defined who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. And this one guy is there to either to take vengeance upon or help the innocent because they can't help themselves. And they do it outside of the system because the cops aren't going to be able to help. And your one protagonist has the skill set to dispatch of the bad guys.
Right.
And like I said, there hasn't been, like, people can say, well, Taken. No, Taken, he's sort of kind of thrown into, they kidnap his daughter, they do this.
Well, there's been a lot of comparison recently between Denzel and Liam Neeson, too, which is interesting that you mentioned Taken.
Which is very interesting to me, too, because I think that Denzel has really carved out a career path much different. No disparaging Liam Neeson. And
both very successful and very talented.
Extremely so. But this movie, like I said, there hasn't been a movie, I think, like this. Like, I kept on thinking of Dirty Harry, of the Charles Bronson, why can't I think of the movie right now? DJ, help me out. The Charles Bronson Death Wish kind of a movie. Like, there hasn't been a movie sort of kind of like that. Now, I know that this is based off of a television series of the 80s, but... And, you know, in which a Brit, same skill set, and he went out to help people who couldn't help themselves in these violent situations. So watching Equalizer for me was sort of kind of a throwback time. Now, did I think the movie was great? No, but to quote Denzel Washington, And this is a great story. Yeah, this is a great story because apparently this movie, highest testing rated R movie for Sony in its history. Antoine Fuqua wanted to screen it for Denzel. So Denzel went to the Sony lot. He had his own private screening room. Antoine Fuqua was waiting outside, sweating bullets because he wants to know what Denzel thinks. So the movie ends and he goes walking in, and there was no reaction from Denzel. And he turns around, and now Antoine Fuqua's going, oh, God, he hates this.
Yeah.
And Denzel, he goes, well, what did you think? And Denzel Washington was like, this movie was missing two things. And he's like, oh, shit. And he's like, popcorn and a Coke. And I was like, yeah, that's, this is a good popcorn and a Coke kind of movie.
Yeah, okay.
Like, it's not fantastic, but it's great watching Denzel be cool. He was a good character.
He was a great character.
Yeah.
There were some really cool relationships. I will definitely want to get into those relationships to see how you're feeling about them. I mean, can we jump right into them?
Why not?
Okay, so what did you think about Denzel's relationship with Teri? With
Chloë Moretz's character.
Yeah.
And again, I think it was it was sort of kind of like a fatherly type of figure that he sort of kind of took upon himself. There was again, this movie did not deal in grays. We knew what Teri was.
Oh yeah.
From the get-go.
Yeah. All those wigs, dead.
Right. and I thought for the limited amount of screen time that Chloë Moretz had,
which was very limited, by the way. I was expecting her to be in a lot more of the movie.
And me as well. But she played her part well, and I found it to be a fatherly mentor, like, come on, girl, you can do better than this, kind of a thing. And the mere fact, and what I really liked about their relationship, is that she was asking questions. Like, she wasn't shunning. Her trade is by night. So obviously she's up during those hours.
Right.
He couldn't sleep. They just happened to be at the same diner at the same time.
Every night.
And Denzel knows exactly who she is and what her job is. She's a lady of the evening. And I just liked how their relationship started to bond, and you can get the sense that she wanted to change, didn't know how to change, and he sort of kind of took over that fatherly mentor, like, you can change. Like, this is, like, when they were talking about books and stories, I really like that a lot.
Yeah, I like that too. And what I'm about to say is clearly a me problem, but
not necessarily.
No, you haven't heard it yet. So.
Okay.
So I have an issue because in Hollywood, all of the time, we see older men and younger women and they're dating. All of the time we see that. So my brain is almost trained at this point to think when I see a man and a woman on screen and they're together and they're having a great conversation, I'm like, romance is coming. And I'm sitting here watching this thinking, but she's so young, she's so young. We never went there. I'm really glad we didn't go there.
Too.
But were you ever thinking for a second, like,
not at all.
lines are going to be crossed here?
No, because that would have taken the movie in a completely different direction.
A very different direction.
I think. And no, not at all. I really did. Just, knowing what the Equalizer character, he really wanted her to do better for herself.
Right.
And I think he noticed, and again, I think he recognized, only because of the questions that she asked. And she actually seemed interested and listened to his answers about the old man in the sea and about this book about knights when there really isn't chivalry around. And that actually was one of my favorite conversations as they were walking. And to me, I never thought of, like, this is going to end up being romantically involved, because it's interesting that you say that, because they were going for an older actress,
which was going to be my next point. I wonder if that would have made me want them to be romantically involved had she been older. So the role was written for somebody older, and then she just came in and blew them away. I actually do think she did a very, very good job
for the limited amount of time she was on screen. Yet again,
performance.
Had talked a lot about her actually after the movie, and
you did.
It would not. Yeah, to myself.
Okay, good. Yeah, legitimate in the car.
What did you think about Chloe? So
I'm with you.
But what I think is fantastic about her, and perhaps her parents, who I believe are her managers as well, she'll take roles that may push her limits, and she doesn't just, she can be in a movie like, If I Stay or a Kick-Ass kind of a movie, or even Dark Shadows. But then she'll play a prostitute like this, and she brings something to the role, and I think she's not afraid. And I think it's great because it does show growth. And,
absolutely.
And that's why she's in the movie for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes total, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, she's gone for an hour and a half.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, she comes back at the end, and I was like not even expecting to see her again.
Yeah.
At some point,
it was nice that they did.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Because then what happened to Chloë Moretz? And then we would have been slamming the movie.
Right.
But
although I do think that the way that she came back was a little cheesy.
Yeah, but
she'd been waiting there. It was
a little 80s.
Right. It was enough.
TV.
It was enough for me because I was worried we weren't going to see her again, and that was better than not seeing her again. However, I think that they could have tied her back in a nicer way. Maybe she started working at the store, or I don't know.
Yeah, and I was getting the sense I got the sense that she was moving out of Boston.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I was like, oh, it's too bad. It would have been nice for her to stay in Boston so that they could remain friends. Because I think that they had a good friendship. And I liked that he really took her under his wing and said, well, you can be whatever you want to be. And I enjoyed that aspect.
Were you more invested in Denzel's relationship with Chloe or with the Ralphie, who was played by Johnny Skortis?
That's a nice Irish name.
Great job.
As Ralphie. That's a really great question. I think that he spent more screen time with Ralphie.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. I really like the relationship he had with Chloe, but with Ralphie too. Again, somebody else who he sees potential in, who wants to do better, and he's trying to teach them, dude, don't use your environment as an excuse. You can do better than this, and it's going to take time, and you're going to do. You'll be fine. And he's helping him out become a security guard.
Right.
I like the relationship. I also like because it brought the story. It moved the story forward. When he quits, unbeknownst, the mysterious reason, he just up and quit.
Well, because
there was
the fire at the.
And then we found out because of the crooked cops and all this, and Denzel champions the innocent who are at heart good people, and so I think that's why the relationship with Ralphie works because. At his heart, he's a good guy. He wants to be, he's chubby. He knows he's not security guard,
level.
A candidate, really, but he's going to try for it anyways. And the character of Robert McCall sees that. And he's like, listen, I'm going to help you do this. You can do this.
Right.
And I like their training. He had more screen time with Ralphie.
I thought that was interesting, though, because really Teri was the character that was the catalyst for Robert McCall to go and do all of this and become who he was again and be the equalizer. But she got much less screen time, even though the storyline was really about him getting revenge for her or taking care of her. He had much more time with the security guard.
I agree. Yeah.
But Ralphie really was the B line. He was the B story. So
absolutely,
it's interesting that that twist happened there, and I appreciated that. I liked paying attention to Ralphie's character, and then when he came back in the end and he really did end up helping, I was like, well, that's the reason he's here. Exactly,
and I think Teri's character too can be. I think you could argue or make an argument that in a way she's sort of kind of like a MacGuffin. She's there to move the plot forward, but not really have any bearing on the plot. She moves the plot forward. Denzel gets embroiled into what he gets embroiled to because of her, but she ends up not having any bearing on what happens thereafter. She doesn't come in to save the day or anything like that. She just comes in to say thank you. And
I also wonder how much it really is because of her or because of him and who he is. You know what I mean?
Another great question.
Could she have been anybody, or did he really take a liking and was very fond and felt like a father figure to this specific girl, or could it have been anybody in that position?
Well, I think the conversation. Well, I think it was. You could have switched out the character and had somebody else be in a position, but I think the conversation that came about with her wanting to be a singer, and he's like, well, why don't you sing? And then
that was another big problem I had, though.
Right. You don't hear her singing?
Yeah, we get the CD. Come on.
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, this is going to make for a great little song over here.
Good.
I don't know whether she can or can't sing.
Right.
It really wouldn't have mattered. Maybe he played it and she was absolute crap. It wouldn't have made a difference to me. I just really wanted to hear it. I felt like we were teased the whole time. Sorry to interrupt you. I know that's not the point you were making.
No. That's what talking movies is all about anyways. It's like we can go off on threads. And and I think that they're bonding. I think because he knows that she's in this because she's making really good money. All right. But it's not her exact choice. She doesn't like the position that she's in. I also took that she's ashamed to be in the position that she's in. Mm-hmm. And the mere fact that she even had the courage enough to sit with Denzel, with McCall, took something of her character to say, like, this guy, there's more to this guy.
You're talking about the first time she ended up sitting in the diner
in his
with
booth.
him.
And he's like, he too was even like, okay. Because, again, another interesting thing about McCall's character is OCD going on. And he's like,
But I felt like he was welcoming to her.
Absolutely. But he was like,
if he didn't want her there, we would have known.
Absolutely. And I think, too, just like by watching her like walk, and he observes the way that like this guy gets out of the limo, and he's just like, she probably has way more potential. Whatever that potential is, this isn't her destiny.
So let's hear it on the CD.
Yeah, well.
And then I go right back to that. Which, by the way, maybe there will be.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps. I mean, the movie has done well enough.
At least this, I will say, though, even if the intention was to have a sequel from the beginning, this is a standalone film, which was...
It has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Which was our problem with Maze Runner.
Yeah.
This movie is actually getting not as high ratings as Maze Runner was, which I was very surprised about, because even though we covered Maze Runner here and I liked Maze Runner a good amount,
right.
I thought that this was probably the better movie.
Oh, I thought this was a far better movie than Maze Runner could have been. Well, I have it
the
here.
Stats?
Yeah, why don't we talk about this movie? Nah, that's all good because all right. So we have the Equalizer released and distributed by Sony.
Yep.
Its production budget was $55 million. No, for a movie of this ilk, not too shabby.
Yeah.
In fact, we just talked about the Box Trolls movie not too long ago, and that budget was like 60.
Oh wow.
For an all in at like 85, including hard drives and advertising.
What was this all in?
90.
Okay.
So Sony ponied up double what Focus Features ponied up for Box Trolls.
Right.
So it opened up number one at the box office, and let's see, its opening weekend domestic gross is 34.1 mil. Not too bad.
Pretty good.
And to date, it's got about 46 million in the bank, estimated, and worldwide is 65 million. So
I would think it was maybe going to do a little better than that worldwide, actually.
It's
still the first
20, about 20. There's $20 million, disparity, and it's doing all right.
I just feel like Denzel is such a force and has so much power.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because later on I'll talk about there was a fabulous article in Forbes about why Denzel Washington is why they believe he is a true movie star compared to other people, but he is. When you look at what he's able to bring in for box office on,
I think that movies, I saw this was his 12th number one film. Yeah. His 12th. That's insane.
Yeah, and people gravitate to him of all races. He's appealing on screen. He has a charisma. And he's interesting. You want to see what he's going to do, whether it's in a movie like Equalizer or a Training Day movie or a Glory, or he always brings it as far as an actor goes, and even in a movie like Flight, again. Talk about a bait and switch. There was nothing in the marketing for Flight that said there was going to be an addiction movie.
Yeah.
And God, when that you just get hit over the head. But when you watch Denzel's performance, regardless of what you end up thinking of that movie, you cannot take away from his performance, and he brings an audience in.
I will say that about him. Even when I see him in movies where I'm like, this movie wasn't my favorite, I still think that he brings it every single time, and he has the ability to make a movie for me the way that he made this movie for me. I don't know how I would have felt about Equalizer had it been somebody else.
I agree.
I think that this movie really, really relied on him.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think had you brought somebody else in, I think I would be.
Who would
I
be a
wouldn't have
candidate
liked
for
it.
this?
I don't know. I mean,
Like
you
a
know,
Liam Neeson, or I mean,
well, you would go to your go-to action guy right now, who's Liam Neeson, and then you'd go, all right, well, I've sort
Tom
of been
Cruise, like what?
there. Maybe, I mean, he did that in sort of kind of in Reacher, which I loved. But I don't know. Nobody. This is a character, you know, what Denzel brings to all his roles, whether he's a good guy, bad guy, he brings a humanity to it.
Right.
So you're going to watch him in a movie about addiction. You're going to watch him play this. He's not a vigilante. He's sort of a vigilante.
He's a
and
vigilante.
stuff, yeah.
He's totally a vigilante.
But you buy him because there's a bit of humanity in him.
More
Like,
than a bit.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's what, in all cases, when you have a good hero like that, it's somebody that everybody can sort of relate to because he doesn't come across, and again, there's no slight. I love the older Schwarzenegger and
Right.
Stallone movies, but those guys are larger than life. Denzel Washington is not larger than life. I don't mean that as a slight, but his characters, they may play and do certain things that are larger than life, but their characters aren't larger than life.
I find even when he's doing things to be they're supposed to be horrifying, I find them endearing. For example, him looking at his watch every time
Right.
with the seconds.
Sure.
I found that incredibly endearing. Like he's playing this little game with him, you know, oh, this is how, whatever it is. That's cool.
Right.
That was such a cool little detail. I really enjoyed that. And I thought that it helped to distinguish this movie from others.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody, for example, too, another thing that he brought to the role that Antoine Fuqua credits, he brought it was Denzel's idea, apparently, for the OCD factor. And again, this brings a little bit of humanity. It also says that this character is not larger than life and perfect. He's not a perfect hero. He's got his own burdens and demons to deal with. He doesn't do it like, this isn't a straight out sort of kind of like a revenge movie. He picks and chooses who he's going to help. And it's because of this girl, like he doesn't want to, but he just feels it's the right thing to do.
I still have questions about that, though. How long was he on hiatus? Do you know what I mean? Like, what was the in-between period? I don't even know if you can call them answers, but when he does go visit his old friends,
Right.
we do see a
working the
little
government.
bit of what had gone on there.
Sure.
But I still feel kind of confused. That's where I find room for a sequel. Really,
Yeah.
what happened? Maybe even a prequel.
Sure.
I mean, what are you thinking? What have you gathered and
What I
pieced
get-
together?
He was Mike, again, something else discussed, you know, feeling is he was a sniper. He was
Right.
a very accomplished, well, you know, security sniper. He had the talents, the goods. Obviously, something went bad. He lost his wife. Now, in the series, he had a son. And I don't know if they're going to mention this going forward because there's no mention of family other than wife.
Although
that I
it makes
remember.
a lot of sense considering that he wants to be this father figure and
Right.
help the young people. I could definitely see that
Right.
coming into play somewhere down the line.
And, you know, I just think that it was told to us that they staged a death, you know, and
Right.
and he went on
And he
to
got away.
Yeah, he got away. And with that, you know, I think he set up his life in Boston. I think he'd been working at the Home Depot or whatever they called it. It was a Home Depot.
yeah.
But I mean, whatever
it? Construction-
it was like Happy Homes or
Yeah.
I don't know, but Home Depot. And it seemed like he was there for a while because everybody knew him and everybody knew the kind of guy, but he was a mystery at work too. Because like people are like, we really want to know, like,
What do you do?
what did you do before
Well,
this?
it's very
And-
obvious he's the
yeah.
one on the right.
Yeah. That, and again,
I love
don't know
that
if
scene.
anybody can carry that off. And I don't know how many people in your audience got immediately got the reference. Like, because they said,
When
what
he
did you
said,
do?
I'm a pimp, and they said,
And he
a
says,
pimp?
I'm a pimp.
A pimp? What?
No,
pimp.
not a
I mean, I have to say, I immediately got it.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love
pimp.
that. But I do think people in my audience kind of looked at each other like, what is
pimp?
a pimp?
What's a pimp?
What's a pimp? Am I supposed to know? Is that kind of job?
Yeah, and he's like, and I'm the guy on the right. He's on the far right.
And then they're looking, they're like, do a little dance for us. Things like that. So endearing.
Again, and he brings that humanity that I don't know. He brings that to the role, and you're right. And you completely empathize, and you just start to root for him.
Yeah.
Just because
Even though
of that.
he slaughters people.
He has his violent past, yeah, and but
Putting it nicely.
But again, I will say this: those movies of the '80s and the '70s, where there was revenge, it's a great one with a girl, Angel, which is a great revenge kind of the violence was always a character in these movies, and he has this brutal past, but damn it, those bad guys were so bad. You wanted them to go down in a very, they gave you a catharsis, because it was like, thank God there's somebody good in the world who can do this. Like, I can't do it myself, but God, and when
I
they go
believe
down
in you.
bad, oh, thank you.
So did you not feel that way about the bad guys in this movie? Did you not feel like they were that bad? Because I was
No.
pretty scared.
I was like, no, they were bad.
They were
like, there was
bad.
no gray area. These guys were bad. They were, in fact, so bad that Russia said they don't want to play the movie because they feel it makes Russians.
I didn't
look
even
bad.
hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So,
Classic.
they're tired of the stereotype, and it's like, well, Jesus, Germans too, and
I
I'm
mean,
sure there are good Russians out there.
We're America. We stereotype everybody. That's what our movies do.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I didn't hold it against Mother Russia there, but look, those guys were bad guys, and you need a Denzel, and you got to take them down with force, because that's what makes you go, I had fun watching him kick those, and whatever. But I also will give credit to Antoine Fuqua and perhaps the script. There's been some criticism. People have said that it's like too violent or whatever. Number one, the movie's rated R. We have an R rating. It's rated R. So shut up about it being too violent. I felt it suppressed violence. In certain scenes. Go ahead.
I have a very hard time with people who say things that are rated R, and you're going to the movie, they're too violent. It's an expression. To anything, I just didn't. And I guess some things are too blank, but this didn't strike me as one of them.
No, and
Wolf of Wall Street, a little too vulgar for me at some point. But again, rated
it's
R.
a rated R movie, and I find there was more violence in Django Unchained.
Yeah.
And
But maybe people were expecting it in
I don't
Django
know.
more.
I just think that, again, when you look, I look at like a Death Wish or a Dirty Harry movie, in the times, they were considered as being violent films. And this one, I felt that, in a sense, there were two scenes that took place in this movie, and they were great. We as the audience know exactly what happened. We can use our imaginations, but any action that took place was so far off screen, like it literally never, like, it didn't happen, but only suggested. So the first scene is the thugs come in to rob the cashier at Home Depot and give me the ring. So next scene we see him, he goes and gets the big hammer. Next day
we see the ring.
The ring. And he's walking back, wiping off the hammer and putting it back. We know what the hell happened.
It was
but we
very
never saw
unnecessary for us to see it. I think that they covered it beautifully.
Yeah. Economically, and we in our minds know exactly what the hell he did. The next scene, which I think even played is as good, if not a little better, was the scene where he's going to go meet Teri at the bar. At the Russian restaurant,
and he comes back with
the sunglasses, and he throws them
Yep.
on the table. He goes, "He won't be coming back."
Yep.
And again,
The glasses shattered, bloody,
and
puts him in the drink.
We didn't see what happened.
No.
You totally know what happened.
Right.
And I'm like, again, they could have exploited the violence in this movie so much more than they did.
Right.
And instead, we didn't get those scenes because we know.
There were violent scenes, absolutely.
Especially in the warehouse. It became a little...
The warehouse, yes, but even the scene where he first goes and he tries to offer the $9,000 or whatever it was, that was... It was a little shocking because we hadn't quite seen him there yet. You know, we hadn't seen him go to that level.
Right.
But I thought it was necessary.
Absolutely. And
we
again,
need to see what he was capable of.
see what he's capable of. And again, it gives the audience who's rooting for a good guy, and these guys are scum. Like, they're beating up girls and like this whole.
Did you see her in the hospital?
Yeah. So
that was
yeah, and you know they're bad guys. So to have one guy to be able to go in there, and again, I just loved how that whole scene plays through, because violence permeated the air the second he walked in. You know, people took out their guns or whatever. He has this great conversation. They do, and then like you think violence is going to happen when they go to shake hands, and they more or less dismiss him, kick him out, and he goes to the door and his OCD kicks in again. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And
you know, you
shutting
get that
the
little
door.
scene, opening and closing the door.
Did you know what he was doing? That literally he starts opening, closing, opening, closing.
Yeah.
I was sitting there like, I'm
he's
waiting for it.
Yeah, and then when he sets his watch, now that scene is in the trailer, so you sort of know, you're primed to know what's coming. But boy, when it comes, man, he brought on the heat, and
I thought in the best way possible.
Yeah, you just went, yes.
Yeah.
It's like he gave you a way out.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I'm giving you an opportunity. I'm giving you a choice.
Yep.
How
he really
you decide
did.
to go, that's up to you, but I can take all of you guys out. The other thing that I loved about the scene and the way Antoine Fuqua filmed his action, tell me if you agree, there was no hyper reality to it. It was pretty much shot on, like, there was no slow-mo of any of that stuff.
No, there wasn't. But what I did like were the visual effects he chose to display. Just like the shot of somebody's keychain and then their ring and then of all those things, those quick cuts of whatever anybody had on them. I thought that was really cool.
No, that was really great.
But other than that, he kind of just let it play out.
Yeah, and we never got into the quote-unquote hyper-real, which has sort of kind of become cliche in a lot of action films, because you got to see everything in slow-mo and the bullet leaving the barrel of the gun, and we didn't get really see that here. Yeah like that, and everything gets blown back. But
speaking of which, you've got some really cool sounds that you can make.
Anyway, but I love the
different movie.
Well, the other thing too that I loved is we see sort of kind of the aftermath of that room, because I was wondering, like, what did he do with the guy? Like, what did it first start? Like, he had that one guy that he dispatched with a rocks glass, and then
you're saying then the Russians come in to check it out.
And you say, oh wow, he bore that right into his eye socket. It's like,
what
whoa.
Did with that? Oh, that's what he did.
With that.
Now I know.
So yes, it's a rated R movie. I found the violence to be, it's a violent movie. It's about a man who had a violent past.
And he got very creative with his violence, I will say. There was a lot of different forms of violence. There was with fire. There was with people's own possessions. There was with his hands. So it wasn't just like over and over again, us seeing somebody strangle another, we switched it up.
And it's funny too, because I had read that Antoine Fuqua, when they were going over the script, he had said something to the effect of, okay, so the climax of the film takes place at a hardware store at a Home Depot. What are you thinking? And he's like, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, shit. He goes, okay, won't work. We got to figure out what to do. And he actually brought in some Navy SEALs that are friends of his to say, okay, so if you're in a Home Depot and you need to take out a squad,
what
are certain things that you would use? And so that's how sand came into play. Everything that he used made logical sense as you were watching it take place. I mean, the strangling with the barbed wire.
Oh my God.
And then I don't know what the hell the thing is that was.
That one was so hard.
It was getting very Friday the 13th-ish. At this point, I'll admit, but I didn't mind, because they were the bad guys and they deserved every single one of it, and they couldn't have come more painful.
I mean, talk about the bad guys. Teddy was just the worst of the worst.
He was the worst of the worst.
He was the worst of the worst. Like, the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, if he doesn't end up dead, but we knew he would.
Yeah.
If he didn't end up so nailed to the ground, he was an awful guy.
Yeah, he was really bad. And I want to bring up a point, because
we see him with them. Go.
Well, I'm going to bring up, we had a conversation before we started, and you were asking me about the actress that played Mandy.
Yeah, I was.
That scene.
That's what I was just about to go to.
Sort of kind of knew it was going to happen.
Right.
And any way in which I figured that was going to go down, it played out, for me anyways, a little bit worse.
It was one of the most terrifying scenes in the entire movie to me because just the suspense and the touching of the face. I thought, and I have to give this to her, I thought that the actress did an amazing job. Haley
agree.
Bennett, I thought she was really great.
Mm-hmm.
She also had very little screen time, possibly more screen time than Teri. Now that I think about equal, I guess.
Sort of,
but,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think. But she did an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her. I was really sad to see her leave when she did. I thought that I was going to really, really piss my pants at this point. Not because of how bad I had to be, just because of how afraid I was.
You drank the trough of Coke.
I'm thinking about myself being this girl and this guy. I mean, she knew the whole time, and he's touching the face, and he's pacing, and he asks if she wants the water. It was so much worse than if he had just killed her right away.
Let her throw a shot her in the head or anything.
And then we go to the exterior shot, and we see this woman outside, and she's like gardening next door. It shows you how oblivious neighbors are, you know, just what goes on behind closed doors. It was the creepiest shot.
Yeah, it really, you're right. The way that it was directed and choreographed, like as the camera pulls back, everyday life is going on.
Yeah, it's just going on.
While evilness and badness is happening. And
this movie did this a lot.
Yeah,
you know,
it
they did a
really
really
did.
good job of people just are kind of living, but what you don't know is XYZ.
Right.
Which I always appreciate when a movie can help me relate because I'm one of the more normal, you know, I'm not slicing people's throats all the time. So you think.
So,
and
JT,
that
can
could
you
be
help
me.
me out here?
I could be the person gardening, you know, and like now I'm like, oh, turn around, see if anybody's dying in the room.
Yeah,
next to you.
it really sets a stage. But again, that's why we need a McCall.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, we want this vigilante who can work outside of the system and get the job done, and he's going to help the innocent. And I've always appreciated those movies, and for a while, perhaps they had run their course, because even when you look at plot points to this movie, like they're pretty standard. Like, I forget what was her Mandy. Like, you sort of kind of know that Mandy's going to get it. Like, there are certain
You mean get it as in die?
As die. Like, she's going to get it. She's going to, you know, because she's the one that knows. And, you know, our bad guy is smart enough to figure out who's the quote unquote leak. But they handle it in a really good way. And plus, we haven't, again, I go back to, I haven't seen a movie like this in a while. So all these tropes that have been done time and time before, it was good to see again, reimagined in this form with Antoine Fuqua at the helm, but watching Denzel again, because he's just like the epitome of cool. And that's the other thing too. Once that scene in the Russian nightclub took place, you never doubted his abilities. You also never doubted that character couldn't pull it off because of Denzel Washington.
Right.
And I think for choosing another actor, you have to believe that actor can handle that. And again,
Absolutely.
they can't be Schwarzenegger or Stallone.
Well, coming back to this, because we have talked about who the actor was, and I believe that originally Russell Crowe was attached to this project.
He was asked, right.
Which, to me, is a very... I just don't think I could see it. I mean, we've seen Russell Crowe and we've seen him Fierce. We've seen him in Gladiator.
Sure.
You know, he's very, very talented actor also, I believe.
Absolutely.
Despite my personal opinions on the
No,
guy, he's a very talented
he is.
actor. And I just think that the movie would have been such a different film. with
It
him
would
in
have been.
And I think a lesser film, to be honest. And it's not fair to say because I haven't seen him in this film, but I don't think anybody could have done it as well as Denzel.
I don't either.
Like you're saying, making us feel comfortable and confident that he was going to pull through.
Right.
He's in a room with 12 people, 16 people. How could I believe that somebody could pull this off?
Right.
Well, because it's Denzel.
Because it's him. And again, when we look at our action stars, like when you look at, again, I'll go back to when you look at Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and even Bruce Willis, to a point. But Stallone, and Schwarzenegger are larger than life people. You know that if they're going to be in a movie, that they're going to be able to handle themselves.
Well, I find them to be more characters, though.
Right, caricature or character,
Yeah.
but you know that they can handle themselves in one way, shape, or form. Whereas to me, a big problem in action movies too is sometimes they pick the wrong actor, and sometimes that actor doesn't even, or actress doesn't even look good holding a gun. Like it looks awkward for them.
Yeah.
But for Denzel, he can play the humanistic and he can tone it down. And we know that he has his foibles, but we believe in Denzel. We believe that McCall can take care of the situation because he not only knows how to handle a gun, he knows how to handle barbed wire, a bag of sand. He knows how to use a microwave.
Yeah.
And, and we just buy it.
Absolutely.
And so
I was sold. I was sold
Absolutely.
from the first second. And it made me wonder, not that this was a superhero movie, because it wasn't, but it is a superhero type character, like, let me go save the day. I wonder if he could be in a superhero and something. I just think he's so talented.
Yeah,
I would love to see, I don't know what hero, but I would love to see something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is a talented guy. I don't know if he could play a superhero. I mean, this character definitely, especially at the end. The end of this movie, and again, the way, and I don't know whose idea it was, but I'm talking about the very end when he goes to Russia and he goes to see this guy Pushkin.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what's great about this scene is
The shower scene.
The shower scene is he's talking to him very not casually, but on with the light, off with the light, on click, click, and I was like, what a great device! Not only is it audio, but it's visual. This great scene.
But it's awesome because it's not post-production, them making effects.
Right.
It's in the scene.
Right.
This psycho that we love.
Right.
Flip it on, flip it on.
Flip
Like
it
he
off.
knows dramatic effect.
Dramatic effect, psychology, and you're just wondering, well, when's he going to throw the knife at him, shoot
Right.
him? And he ends up, I was like, oh, he's going to
Best part is that the guy kills himself.
Yeah, he's
He
going to
kills
set
himself.
up to electrocute. But what's even better is like, all right, you start, well, what the hell happened to this guy's security?
Staff,
And
yeah.
as he starts walking out, you just see the trail.
That's another time that we don't see the violence.
We don't see the violence, but we see the aftermath
we
of that
do.
one. And you just go, yeah, it's just awesome.
Like, damn right he did
Yeah.
that. And I'm not like, how could he have done that? I'm like, oh, yeah, of course.
Of course
that's what happened.
Of course he did that. Yeah, it's like, holy, this guy means, like, when he was working for the U.S. government, he was a force to be reckoned with.
The more we're talking about it, the more I'm realizing I very much so don't believe that this movie was too violent.
No.
I really don't.
No, neither do I. And, it's interesting because in some of the research going on, Antoine Fuqua was talked about, how they today, in today's movie making, creating environment, there is a lot of pressure to make movies PG-13. Phil and I talked about this
For
a lot
money.
during the Expendables 3. There's no freaking reason that an Expendables movie should be PG-13, period. So
Well, it just happened with Deadpool, too. know?
There's just, there should be no reason for, that type of a movie to be PG-13. And Antoine Fuqua has done a lot of rated R movies. He's done some PG-13 movies. One in particular that he talks about, because he was asked, how much does rating impact the way you finish the product? And he's like, oh, completely.
Yeah, of course.
And he goes, from the first frame you shoot, he goes, it's like how I'll envision something. And he was making this movie, King Arthur, and where I was making one movie, and then I had to switch directions during that process. He goes, I was making, I had in my mind this one rated R movie, and then about halfway through, they tell me, nope, we're going PG-13, and you have to change everything up. Listen, there's room for good adult rated R action movies.
It's the same thing, when somebody's pitching a pilot and they're pitching it to both CW and HBO, and you have to say, this is how I could change it. It's a completely different show,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to think about the audience. I have such a hard time when artists know that they have to make money, so they can't make the product that they want to make.
Right.
I always want to see what somebody wants to show me.
Yeah, and I always, I feel the same way, and it
But
just,
I get it.
Well, I just think I get it in certain situations. I do. But there are some movies like there are some movies that just beg to be rated R. Some action movies. I'm not okay. Another example I'll use is the Die Hard 4, Live Free or Die Hard. Fox went out and they made a PG-13 Die Hard movie, and I'm like, what the fuck? When your lead
PG-13.
Well, yeah, but your lead character who from the very first Die Hard movie, his motto was "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," and you can't say that in a PG-13 movie a lot, and then
that's like his.
That's his thing, and it's like, why do you make a PG-13 Die Hard movie? But thankfully, when they released it on DVD, and I think it's on Blu-ray as well, they released the R-rated version. And I'm telling you, if you watched it, if you haven't seen it already, it's a different movie because it's the John McClane that we love.
That's insane.
And it's the John McClane we want to see in a movie. We don't want to see him declawed. We want to see these action heroes. We want to see him prevail in a violent way. I can't even think of making a Dirty Harry movie PG-13 or even this movie PG-13.
Because some movies just aren't supposed to be like that.
No, they shouldn't be. And you can listen, the adult audience is smart enough. And if you make a good movie, they'll go.
Right.
Like they're going to go, as they did on this movie. So,
I agree. And as I said, I want to see what they want to show me. I don't want to see what they're showing me to make money. But I do get it, and it's a business, and it happens. But I wish that it happened less than it did. Luckily, this is a movie that we got full force. We got the R. Yeah,
we got an R-rated movie, and it's good for, adult action movies can work just as a PG-13 action movie can work, where maybe you'll get in a younger audience. But when I went to see The Equalizer, it was packed. It wasn't packed with teenagers because they weren't marketing it towards that crowd to begin with. Crowded house when you saw it?
I went last Friday night, and it was a lot of dates, and girls squeezing their man's hand, and probably like 35.
I was going to say 25, 35. Yeah. And it ends up not being a bad date movie. It's a good date movie.
No, absolutely.
And I think that the women, I think that's another thing too about Denzel, is that he can appeal to men and women.
Of course, I agree. That's why he's so great.
Yeah.
There's a few things we haven't talked about that I definitely want to talk about.
What did you want to talk about?
Well, one of them being that we haven't related this to Training Day at all yet, and I want to know from you how you feel they compare, because you can't help but drawing comparisons based on the director and Denzel.
Right. Well, for me personally, again, we'll talk about violence. I think Training Day is a much more violent movie than this.
Yeah.
Was.
Yeah.
And where this one is a popcorn and Coke movie, I think Training Day wasn't necessarily meant to be a popcorn and Coke movie.
Right.
And
that movie blew me away more than this movie did, if we are comparing. They're not the same movie.
No.
But I do think that I have a preference towards that movie.
Yeah, well, look, they're two different movies. This was Training Day was a Denzel. He won the Academy Award, I believe, for Training Day too. And
I think so.
And listen, that was about corrupt cops. You had Ethan Hawke, who was really good, but you had
amazing.
You had Antoine Fuqua doing a corrupt cop, almost a Michael Mann kind of a movie. I think they're just two different. Where one's more for commercial popcorn entertainment, the other one's a rated R cop drama that happens to have a really good, a really solid performances from everybody all around. And again,
when Denzel did win the Oscar for it, and Ethan Hawke was nominated.
And when you look at Denzel in this, again, he is the villain in this movie. But in that movie, I'm going to say that there are grays, because again, being a villain, he still was. You at first understood. He's taking this kid on the ropes, right? And he's taking him under his wing. He's showing him how things work, in the inner city of Los Angeles, and these not so nice areas and these rough areas. And he's worked the system for a while. So yes, he's done things outside of the system, and you can believe like why he's working the way he's working.
Yeah.
So, and there is a bit of humanity to the character that he plays as a villain. So he becomes at times you at least understand where he's coming from, and then by the end, I mean, he gets so embroiled and then he just
absolutely.
he can't dig himself out. I think Training Day is a very good movie. I just think that they're two different. Like, Denzel won't be nominated for this movie, but who cares?
Right.
I mean, I say I paid for the ticket. I was entertained for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I think a little longer. I think it was almost 2:20.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay.
But yeah, I was entertained as well. I thought that the music really helped with the pacing of the movie. We spent a good 4 hours.
Oh yeah, let's throw this out there. Okay, the warehouse scene. We believe that it was a Gladys Knight and the Pips song because he was bringing a recall back from the beginning that was playing.
So we saw that there are 2 songs in the film.
And none of them sounded. It wasn't Midnight Train to Georgia.
And then there was Friendship.
But I thought, or maybe it was.
Now we're confused. You guys let us know.
If anybody could find out what that song is, that would be great.
The soundtrack was great, though. It helped us move forward. Then there was that great Eminem and Sia song. And just even when it was just like heartbeat sounds, I was always feeling on the edge of my chair. So they did a great job with that. And then, of course, I know I'm moving quickly through these things, but the other thing that we briefly talked about off air, but I wanted to save the conversation for on air, was about the fact that this movie, whether you noticed or not, took place in Boston.
In Boston, yep.
So I'm a Boston native.
Same here.
And I...
Wicked Pissa.
Wicked Pissa. Oh, yeah, that's the shirt you should have worn this week.
I almost did, but I had worn
shirt.
it I wore it the other day, and
that's
sometimes
what the
people will go,
for,
"What are you?"
Yeah,
but some people, "What are you running out of shirts?" And I try not to.
You're like,
I
okay.
have a shitload of shirts. Trust me. I'm like the Bill Cosby of t-shirts.
Oh, good.
But anyway.
So anyway, it took place in Boston, and unlike a lot of our Boston-centric movies that are so Boston, I mean, we could name a million, Goodwill, Departed, whatever you want to talk about, but anything. They all scream Boston. This movie did not scream Boston.
No.
It took place in Boston, but didn't scream Boston. I both liked and disliked this aspect. So you can't win with me sometimes. You really can't. What I liked about it was the fact that this movie really had nothing to do with Boston. So it didn't seem necessary to keep referring to Boston or have these wicked thick Boston accents, dude, or whatever it is.
And the way there was only one character that I remember really having a thick Boston accent. That was the thug who was robbing the Home Depot. He had a thick accent.
The one that I remember having the thick accent was the guy that he came and murdered at the desk. It was actually the same construction company as their. You know, and
I know and one of the Boston cops.
Yeah, one of the and the Boston cop, the Masters, David Harbour, and I just noticed a few of them had the Boston accent. Yeah. None of them seemed really over the top and thick, which sometimes can ruin a movie.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that this didn't. But of course, being a Boston girl, I love to see Boston any chance we can get.
I'm right there with you.
So I like to insert it a little more when we can because there's so many LA movies. There's so, and so anytime I have a Boston movie, when I'm going to the theater and I know it's a Boston movie, I'm thinking, ooh, this is exciting. Yeah. This didn't fulfill my Boston movie need, but it wasn't trying to.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say this because, you know how we are as Bostonians, right? If somebody fucks up that accent, we're going to pounce on you like fluff on peanut butter.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
i.e.
you can't overdo it. And when you overdo it, it's just not good. It's like claws in a. It's almost like
Blake
buffoon.
Lively when she. Oh, that was tough. I had a hard time with that one. Yeah,
really?
And I love her. There's just some times, and it's really interesting actually because people have different Boston accents. It's not like everything's the same. But when I'm,
you got rid of there, right?
And then you
got Malden. Yeah, you got Saugus.
You got your Saugus,
Peabody. Yeah,
I love it. But that's why. So if you go into this movie thinking
Medford.
Which is actually Medford. If you're going to this movie thinking, oh, I'm going to go see a Boston movie.
Right.
You're not getting that.
No, you're not going to get shots of the Public Garden or the Boston Commons.
Yeah.
You got some great shots of the Red Line.
Yeah, and you like the Lenny Zakem Bridge.
Yeah, the Zakem Bridge, and you saw the garden.
Yeah.
It was right, although it was weird. It was almost like they digitized, like, I know from that angle, it says TD Garden over there, so it's almost like they digitized out the Boston Garden over there. But yeah, it was weird. And
although the garden does seem to change its name every single year.
The Irishman. Remember that gravel pit? That gravel. Okay, they remember the Irish. Okay, in the movie, the Russian went to go visit the foreman of this gravel pit. Okay. And this is a gravel pit that, I'm sorry, this is very Bostonian. You can see from 93, if you're going into Boston, it's this big gravel pit. Okay. And he was the Irish. Yeah, they walked in. It was the Russian guy and that Boston cop. And the Irish guy had a thick East accent. Oh my God! If he wasn't from East Boston, Southie, he had a very thick accent. He was Southie. Yeah, and trivia about this.
I love when you do this to us.
This is a true story. Famed Batman producer Peter Guber, his brother Charlie, I believe, I'm not sure, but when I was in Boston, used to run that gravel pit location. And again, you see it every time you're on the 93. Cool. Charlie Guber, he used to run that operation over there. So
and now you know.
And there you have it. There you go.
So a little bit movie of exclusive.
There you go. And a Boston, in a sense, landmark. If you're taking 93 into the city, and you're not going over the Mystic Bridge, that's just a popular landmark. Yep, they make gravel.
Right.
So
there were references. There absolutely were. But again, if you're looking to see the Boston movie.
But and again, I also like the fact that we're shown different parts of Boston that aren't normally.
Cool. It's not just.
How awesome was Denzel's apartment? Did he not have
which one?
Well, his original one that had the view of the bridge of the Mystic River Bridge. I'm like,
so cool.
Wow, that guy must have a shitload of money.
But that's when you saw the OCD take, and you look in the apartment and everything is like spick and span.
Yeah, but that was an amazing view.
Yeah, it was.
That was a great view.
So I wouldn't mind having dinner over
What would
there.
you like? Mr. What would you like?
I just want to bring something up real quick.
Bring something up real quick.
JT, as he raises his hand, I call on you.
You were mentioning Training Day and how people compare that because it's Denzel and Fuqua, and then you look at Taken. Mm-hmm. With the one movie, this feels like almost a cousin to me is Man on Fire. Very similar plot. There's a young girl in trouble. Yeah. A guy who has special skills comes out of retirement.
Right. Sure.
And no one's really mentioned it, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a great reference. Dakota Fanning.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Dakota Fanning is one of my favorite actresses of all time, though. And it's a little different because of how young Dakota Fanning is in that movie.
No, she's very young.
So it wouldn't be like if I was watching that, I could be like, ooh, is this going to go somewhere I don't want? Because that would be a very, very bad.
I never thought that, like Demetri. I never thought there was a chance of that.
I'm twisted, though,
what's going on, Roxy?
It's hard.
What is going on?
Girl.
Whoa.
But I thought that was a great movie, too. And it is a good comparison.
You can't make a sequel to Man on Fire, though.
Yeah. There wouldn't be much to make a sequel
No.
But this movie we very well could, so...
Yeah.
I mean, would you go see it? Equalizer 2?
Absolutely.
Is that what
if the
Equalizer strikes back?
Yeah, the Equalizer equals it out or something.
Good.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, Denzel and Antoine Fuqua are involved. Absolutely. I would like to see the next... his next adventures and who he's going to save next and for what reason. Perhaps we get a little more backstory into the guy, which would be pretty cool. I just think, again, Richard Wennick, who's written some movies like The Mechanic. We talked. Now, that's a remake of a Charles Bronson movie called The Mechanic, and but he did 16 Blocks. He's The Expendables 2 he did. Yeah. So, he's no stranger to writing these kind of movies. I thought the movie looked good. I thought it was edited together really well too, right? I mean...
Yep, and the pacing really,
Again, the pacing, that's one thing that I sort of kind of appreciated about this movie because it took its time for us to get to know McCall.
I agree, although I do think it could have been 10 minutes shorter. I do think with little bits here and there.
Where would you have maybe taken out?
That's the problem, my friend.
I know.
I don't know, but again, I opened up by saying this TMI, but I did really have to pee, so the pacing maybe felt a little slower for me. But I do think that this could have been a movie that was 2 hours and 10 minutes as opposed to I think it was 2:20. I don't know exactly where though. If people were, no, I don't know.
Yeah, and
it
again,
would have had to been like 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there.
Yeah, and
there was no scene I could have totally cut.
And I think its pacing again sort of kind of goes against the grain to what we're conditioned to know as an action movie. And again, the set pieces weren't. Here's another cool thing: set pieces didn't rely on car chases or anything like that.
Yep.
They were just bared down, knuckle brawling, fighting, and using whatever you can weaponize. In a setting, which I thought was really cool, and again, I think some of the violence which took place off screen, I really, it made it economical. Okay, aside from it being exploitive and gratuitous, had we seen him attack the guy with the hammer, had we seen him dispatch the bodyguard with the sunglasses,
then we could have cut.
You're making your movie longer, and then you're becoming gratuitous.
Right. When
we already know what this character is capable of. I don't know. I thought John Refour, as an editor, I think he kept the pace going pretty well. He worked on Olympus Has Fallen and Avatar. I mean, the guy knows how to edit. I thought the score. I thought the score was really good
helped too. Very strong,
and not overstated.
Right. And not using only popular music or whatever it was. I thought that it was really strong. Do you think, so I know I asked if you could see Equalizer 2.
Sure.
Do you think that this character could break off? I mean, because it does come from the TV series and now we have the Equalizer. Could this almost be like the next Bourne, and we start to see many, many Denzel versions of this or somebody else being an Equalizer?
God, I think, you always say this. It's like asking, could anybody step into the roles of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man?
Right.
And again, this is an age-old question that has always plagued, when Sean Connery decided to give it up for James Bond. Who can fill in those shoes? I mean, I'm not going to say that it can't be done, because I think history of film has proven that, given the right circumstances and the right actor, that it can be. I would just like to see Denzel at least do one more.
Yep, I would love to
see. Before Sony decides to either reboot. I don't want to reboot so soon. But Denzel, give me one more.
I am sold on an Equalizer 2. I will give it
me
that.
Too.
Absolutely.
And from there, those studio heads can come together and figure something out. That his payday is going to be, whatever it is, his payday is going to be big. But I think for a movie that he really does carry on his shoulders, why not?
Yep.
And again, I just say that he's so, I don't know. I just think that with the way that Denzel works and operates, I think it's important for him to come back for at least one more. And then whatever they decide after that, I don't know. But I'd like to see him do one more.
Okay.
Don't you?
Yeah, I would. The critics gave this on Rotten Tomatoes a 60. The audience is giving it an 83. What are you closer to?
What am I close to? I guess I would be
somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, I would give this out of 4 stars. I'd probably give this a good solid 3 stars.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with having a good popcorn and Coke movie, a good popcorn movie, and this fit the bill. And it came out of
called a popcorn movie. You're adding the Coke to it every time,
because Denzel.
Which I get.
Yeah, well, Denzel said it.
Who doesn't want the Coke on the side? Yeah.
And it's just, you get thirsty. So
I'm more of a root beer kind of girl, but
But I just think. Wait, what were we saying?
Huh?
No, I mean, I think. Oh, number one, let's talk about this. Okay. The importance of a release date. I know I've talked about release date. I think it's a major part of the success of Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to talk about this movie in particular because we're talking about
You're going to talk about Equalizer? Huh.
Do you know that the original release date for this movie was to be in April, around the time which Captain America Winter Soldier came out?
You think it would have gotten slaughtered?
slaughtered may not be the right word because it is Denzel. I just don't think. I think it might have been maybe a little bit buried. I don't think.
I could see that.
This had a weekend to itself, and its only competition was a kids movie, Box Trolls, and it had the weekend to itself. They had a great marketing campaign to move up for, to push it forward. One of my problems with the summer is that we never gave movies time to breathe. I think they picked a good date. Now, this week we've got.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how
Gone
would you
Girl.
have felt if this had come out at the same time as Gone Girl or Fury or any of those movies we have coming up?
Tough. I mean, I think that Sony, they picked the date that they had, knowing that, okay, we got Gone Girl next week, which is going to go for a same audience. Right. So hopefully the goodwill that they've earned through positive reviews and the great word of mouth, I think that Equalizer will sustain. And I think that it'll have some legs going down the line, but we're getting into a very busy time of the year.
Yeah.
So
very busy.
With Gone Girl coming out, which is basically going for that same audience, maybe, a more, and again, no, I'm not disparaging anybody, but it's based off of a very popular book. So people who've read the book, so people who've read this book and an older audience, similar to who was going to Equalizer, they'll come out and see Gone Girl, but I don't think that the drop will be as disastrous as it could have been had it come out.
And you're not talking about the movie The Drop. You're talking.
Oh yes, I'm not talking about the movie The Drop, but I'm saying like
it's confusing these days.
I don't think that
anything you say
right.
is a title.
You're right. I just think that it would have been disastrous had this movie opened up a week before Captain America: Winter Soldier. You might have opened up at the 35 or whatever.
It trickled out real quick.
Yeah,
okay.
Really quick. So again, I
agree with you.
Importance of release date.
Which
great move
means that they're smart.
In this case, I don't always side with the studio head, but in this case, the distribution.
Wicked smart.
They were wicked smart. they were smart in moving that out and they had their dunks. They were running on dunks that day.
Oh yeah. Now that it is in LA.
Now,
we're all running on dunks.
Absolutely. I've waited for a half hour
We're referring to Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts out here. Dunkin' Donuts out here in Santa Monica, since we are a little bit Boston. Yeah, they opened up the past 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, I went there first day, 2 hour wait. I said, for a fucking donut? You're out of you're retarded. That's what I said. I said, you're out of there.
Wicked stupid.
I'm not going to wait for a donut.
But our very own executive producer, Maria Menounos, also went and has some very cute Instagrams of her pouring coffee there.
Well,
so that's the important part.
Yeah, if I went back there to pour coffee, they'd throw me out. They'd go, who the hell are you? Get out of here.
And now I feel like we've wandered off topic.
Yeah, we've wandered off topic. We've gotten a little bit.
As JT nods in the booth, yeah.
But here's the thing, too. I mean, when you look at movie stars and what they're able to bring to a role, Denzel, what were you saying? 12 number one movies?
12. This is 12th. That's crazy.
Yeah. And he fits what this writer in Forbes said.
I would take one.
Put star and concept together.
Yeah.
And make it work.
Yep.
He's made it work. And think about star and concept. Great movie. I really loved it. One of my favorites of the summer, Edge of Tomorrow. You had Tom Cruise.
I really liked Edge
of
Tomorrow
as well.
Star,
and you had this concept. Didn't necessarily work this summer. Could it have been release date if they put it? Perhaps. But when it was released, didn't necessarily work.
Right.
We have, who else can you put in? I mean, it's really tough where Denzel has had an amazing streak. And if you go on a Netflix or if you even look at his resume of his filmography, there are some movies that sort of suck.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of say Fallen, and John Q, I think might have been another.
You weren't a fan of John Q?
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of.
I was a fan.
Let Go and Give God or something. The one in the hospital, right? Was that John Q?
Yeah, I thought that movie was so
I didn't like that one so much.
Oh my God, you're heartless.
No, I'm not. Well,
I didn't like it either.
Okay, thank you.
You guys.
I've been called worse, but it wouldn't be the first time I've heard I'm heartless.
I don't mean it.
No, I know.
I think you're heartful. Is that a word?
No, but I'm just saying that. Look, anybody who makes that many movies, okay, they're not all going to be fantastic, but he's taking
John
risks.
Q was.
Okay. Well, it made money. It did well. And again, when you put star and concept together, he's one person that you can point to say, #1 movie at the box office. In like, Two Guns. I mean, you had him and Mark Wahlberg, but I think a bigger draw was Denzel Washington's bringing in a crowd that Mark Wahlberg ain't bringing in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm with you.
That's what the Forbes article is saying. We'll share that link because I really do think it's a worthy link, especially in today's, like, the business is so hard to try to make stars out of people that they're not allowing them to breathe and become stars on their own.
It's true, but in all fairness, you're saying he does have a few bad movies. That might be so, but first of all, I love John Q, but remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans?
There's been some amazing.
Don't forget,
as we talked about, Man on Fire, Training Day, American Gangster. Come on.
You want to talk about a fast-paced action film that like, in all its silliness, it still works. And again, it's star in concept, Unstoppable.
Yep.
Unstoppable is like 90 minutes, and all it is a train on fire. And you had Captain Kirk in that movie too. And again, 90 minutes in that movie just burned. And again, why do you buy it? Because Denzel Washington, there's a humanity in him that he's in the rears. Yeah, it's great.
I think the point of this all is we could say we like Denzel a little bit.
Yeah, but did you like?
He's a little talented. We like him a little bit.
Again, The Book of Eli.
Yep.
All right, American Gangster, Safe House. Okay, there are some of those movies I like better than others, but again, people went to see them. And again, it's star and concept, and how a star really helped push that concept going forward. So, well, why don't you become part of this discussion, everybody?
Yes, please.
After you listen and or watch. Please feel free to comment. We love to read your comments. We love to see the comments, and we always want to know what you're thinking about movies. I think this was a great discussion.
I think
this was
a very great discussion.
I think this was awesome, and
it makes me like the movie more.
Yeah,
when I talk about it, it does.
And that's the power of talking about movies. When you think about a movie, and sometimes it can make you hate a movie more.
Yeah,
too.
That's true. And then uh-oh.
Yeah. This one didn't make me angry at all.
It didn't make you angry.
No.
We're successful.
Yeah. I was pleased.
Good.
I walked away with a smile. So, where can they find you?
You guys can find me everywhere at Roxy Striar. Pretty easy for you. You
can find me Anatomy of a Movie, and you can find me at DMovies1701. And like I say, I tweet about movies. I figure I don't do anything really personal because I don't want to bore the crap out of you. So it's usually all movie related stuff. We got a ton of stuff coming up. I mean, we're getting into award season. We're getting to really some good movies. And here's the soundtrack. Yeah, good stuff.
Done. It gets my heart really.
It's good. Yeah, it's a good movie. Yeah. So we hope that you enjoyed The Equalizer as much as we did. Let us know. Keep on coming back because we've got things like Gone
Girl's coming
We've got things like horror movies like Annabelle. We got the rest of this month, which there's like 3 or 4 movies coming out this month. Yeah,
hopefully we'll be covering Eleanor Rigby, Hector and the Search for Happiness. We got a lot of them
We have a lot of small movies coming out.
And if you guys request things, we'll cover them.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, so tell us what you have seen that maybe we've missed. So thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of Anatomy of a Movie, my awesome host, Roxy Striar.
Oh.
Take care, all.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.